This radio play is based upon the research of Marshall Trimble, Arizona's official state historian. It is based upon verbal accounts of events that occurred during the last half of the 19th century in Arizona Territory. This story was written and adapted for the Great Southwest Radio Theater's Arizona Stories Project by our own Bill Alewyn. The territory of Arizona toward the end of the 19th century was home of many Western myths and legends. Apache war chiefs with names like Cochise and Geronimo struck terror in the hearts of early Arizona ranchers and miners. And perhaps no one, or no thing, was more feared or misunderstood in its day than that elusive red ghost. This eerie legend began one night at the Cooper Ranch near Eagle Creek, northwest of Clifton, Arizona, back in 1883 when the Apaches still roamed the Southwest.
Would you just listen to that howl? Children, I think we're in for a big dust storm.
I wish Daddy would get back soon. I'm scared.
There's nothing to be afraid of, children. It's just desert wind. Your father will be back soon. I reckon he's chased Cochise halfway to Mexico by now.
Halfway to all the saloons between here and Silver City is more like it. That man can be almost as bad as my husband, Hank.
Jolene?
I'll say it for him since he ain't here to say it for himself. There never was a horse or a saloon that man couldn't break.
Hush, Jolene. What kind of talk is that in front of the children?
Honest talk, I calls it.
Was Uncle Hank really the best horseman in all the territory, Aunt Jolene?
There. You see, my son Bradley practically idolizes the man, and he's never even met him.
The best horseman and the most stubborn. None too steady as a husband, though. One day, he just upped and left. Not the kind of man you want to be idolizing, Bradley.
Bradley Cooper, it's time you put that book down and turn in. You too, Rebecca.
But Mother, it's early yet, and I haven't gotten through Volume H yet.
You'll catch H if you don't do as you're told, hear me? You can pick up that book after you finish your morning chores. Now go on.
But the wind, Mama.
What you afraid of, child? A little cold wind never hurt nobody. Now go on to bed.
Just listen to them dogs. Horses now, too.
Someone's getting into those horses, Ma. Maybe wolves. I better go look.
No, you don't, son. Don't you realize there's Apaches about? You stay right here.
What you gonna do, boy? Throw your Encyclopedia Britannica at them wolves? I'll go have a look.
No, Jolene, you'll do no such thing in my house.
You think I'm afraid of what's out there? I'm not.
We'll go together then.
Someone has to stay here and watch the children.
Who's a child? I'm 10 years old.
That's right. 10 and already up to H in your new Encyclopedia Britannica, I see.
Just listen to those dogs, Mama. Someone's out there. Something big.
Stop it, Bradley. You're scaring your little sister half to death. Look, she's shivering now.
I'm not scared, Mama. I'm just cold.
Go to bed, girl. Bradley, get away from that window. You go to bed, too.
But I want to see Aunt Jolene. I want to...
Ah! What is it?
It's Aunt Jolene. Didn't you hear her scream? I gotta go save her.
You stay where you are, Bradley. No one's going out there now, not with Cochise and his Apaches on the warpath.
You heard her scream, Mama. Aunt Jolene's in trouble.
You stay inside with your sister. Do you hear me, son?
What about you, Mama?
I'll see to Jolene. She's my sister. Bolt the door behind me and don't open it until we come back. Understand?
Yes, Mama.
Bradley, I'm scared. Where's Mama?
She went to help Aunt Jolene.
They'll be back. Can you see anything? Shh. Give me a boost up so I can see too.
There, does that help? Holy Mother of God! Did you see that?
Bradley, open up.
Mama, what was it? Where's Angeline?
She's dead.
That same evening, Brad Cooper returned home to the ranch, and in the morning he rode into town and brought back Sheriff Slattery.
That's the way I found her, Sheriff. Flat on her back with her face in the moonlight with her eyes still open.
Well, not a mark on her. Something must have scared that poor woman to death.
But what? Wild stallion?
Ha, you knew Jolene Culpepper better than me, Brad. Now, did she strike you as a woman afraid of wild stallions?
Not on her worst day, Sheriff. But there's plenty of hoof prints all about.
Yeah, well, I've seen those too. Bigger than any hoof prints I've ever seen. And cloven like a sheep or a goat. Now, I ain't never seen any sheep or goat that big before in my life. And mind you, I'm from Texas. Well, they look to me like they belong to something almost prehistoric.
Like what?
But like them dinosaur bones they dug up last year up in the Dakotas. Didn't you read about it, Brad?
No, I did, Sheriff. What they found was petrified remains of a brontosaurus.
A what?
A brontosaurus. I seen a picture of one in our encyclopedia books.
You're trying to tell me my wife's sister got trampled to death by a dinosaur, Sheriff?
No, I ain't saying that. Not with re-election coming up in the fall. And we both agree poor Jolene wasn't trampled. But whatever it was that killed her did it on the spot. Didn't you tell me your sister-in-law had a bad heart?
That's right. Doc Simpson told her once there wasn't anything he could do about it, just to never get excited or exert herself.
Yeah, Doc told me that once too.
But I've known that woman for 20 years, and she wasn't one to take things easy.
Yeah, she is now. Tell me again, son. What'd you see last night from behind that window?
I didn't see any brontosaurus, Sheriff, if that's what you're thinking. But I did see something, and it was big.
All right, well, now how big? Big like an elephant, maybe?
Elephants don't have hair, not like mammoths, Sheriff.
A what?
A mastodon, Sheriff. They got pictures of them in the encyclopedia, too.
Never mind the encyclopedia, son. He looks at too many of those pictures inside that set of books. We bought them last year at the auction.
Well, never mind that. Now let the boy speak. You're telling me last night you saw one of them hairy elephants, son?
What I saw wasn't an elephant, and it wasn't a mammoth. And I only saw it for a second. This thing had a big, long neck, and it was covered in long red hair. And there was something else, Sheriff.
All right, go on.
There was somebody riding on it.
Now, what do you mean somebody was riding on it? Like a man?
Like a skeleton, maybe. A skeleton with a big black sombrero on his head with a shiny hat band.
Bradley, that's enough.
It's true, Father.
Wait, now, son, I know you've had a shock, losing your aunt and all, but a serious crime has been committed here.
It was a skeleton, I'm telling you. Or some kind of ghost. And it wasn't no elephant, but the biggest, ugliest, meanest monster I ever saw in my life.
Wearing a sombrero.
The thing on his back was wearing a sombrero.
All right, son, now settle down. Now, it stands to reason you saw something. Hey, Brad, didn't Hank Culpepper used to wear that big black sombrero every time he broke a bronc?
That's right. A large black sombrero with a silver hat band. You don't think it's Hank Culpepper, do you? Coming back to haunt his wife?
No, that would not be good. I don't think it would ever...
Go ahead and laugh. I saw it, I tell you. I saw it.
Now, Bradley, that's enough. We're not laughing at you, son.
No, that's right. But it's my job as sheriff of this county to be skeptical. The last thing Arizona needs is another ghost. We'll never reach statehood at this rate.
Sheriff Slattery was right. a small town in rural Arizona, you know how these panics get started. It wasn't a heart attack or Apaches or red wolves that killed Jolene Culpepper. It was a human skeleton riding atop a great red-haired, cloven-footed beast. The human brain is an imaginative organ susceptible to all kinds of suggestive mischief. So it wasn't but a week later when a group of sleeping prospectors from Clifton were awakened to the sound of thundering hooves outside their tent, followed by a most ghostly scream just before their tent collapsed.
Oh no! What's going on? It's the ghost! It's the hairy beastly ghost! It's going on! I can't believe it!
In an illuminating moment of late 19th century detective work worthy of a Wyatt Earp, Sheriff Slattery deduced the origin of that ungodly scream.
So, it was you, Bill Bledsoe, who contributed the scream to that fracas?
Well, that's right, Sheriff. Just before the roof of that tent came crashing down on us. Or maybe it was just after. All the excitement I don't rightly remember.
Well, the big cloven hoof prints sure match the ones found at the Cooper Ranch. And you did see this ghost, not just hear it, before you screamed and the tent collapsed?
I heard it and I saw it. I tell you, Sheriff, it wasn't a sight any of us are likely to forget. That ghost was riding the biggest, orneriest horse I ever saw in my life. A horse covered with long red hair.
Long red hair? Kind of smooth and shiny like lily lang trees?
Nah, more like this, Sheriff.
But, where'd you get that, Bledsoe?
One of the miners picked it up over by the trough the next morning right after all them big hoof prints showed up.
Why, that don't look like Lily Langtree's hair at all. It's more like the unruly red locks of the devil himself.
Oh, that's what I've been trying to tell you, Sheriff. Now, you've taken down the description from each and every one of us. What we all want to know is what you intend to do about this red ghost.
Well, at this point, I don't know what I'm going to do, but well, if I were you fellas, I'd get another tent.
And so, with the mysterious red ghost still on the loose, the legend grew with each new sighting.
I seen the red ghost over at Dutchman Flats just after midnight last night. It stomped and killed a grizzly bear, and then it ate that whole grizzly in 6 bites, bear claws and all. It was covered in red hair and had green teeth and stood 30 feet tall.
Well, I seen the red ghost last night down by the Salt River. It was 50 feet tall, stomped and ate a whole herd of white-faced cattle. What do you intend to do about that, Sheriff?
Well, now everybody wants to know what I'm going to do. Well, you know, if I were you, Cyrus, I'd get me some faster white-faced cattle.
But for all his good-natured incompetence, Sheriff Slattery knew he had a potential epidemic of panic on his hands, and he had to do something quick, especially since he was up for re-election in a month.
Did you get him early?
No, damn it, I missed. But did you see it, Martha?
I saw something early, some kind of apparition. Red and hairy and big as a freight wagon and taller than, it must have been 60 feet tall.
But did you see who was riding that 60-foot tall freight wagon?
I saw something early, but I won't swear to it.
Why not?
And risk getting thrown in one of them sanatoriums for crazy folks? You saw it too, Early. There's only one man in this part of Arizona who's ever worn a black Mexican sombrero, and he's been gone at least 10 years.
Yeah, I know. Ain't Culpepper. And now he's back riding a big red ghost.
That's right. Hank Culpepper, the biggest no-count braggart in the territory.
Oh, Hank wasn't just a braggart, Martha. Hank was the best. I can still see him riding broncos like it was last week. Hank had his faults, but there weren't nothing he couldn't ride.
Including the Red Ghost?
Well, maybe Sheriff Slattery will have a thing or two to say about that.
But if Sheriff Slattery had any insights on the eerie subject, he kept them to himself.
Well, hello, Bradley. How's your folks these days? And I bet you must be all the way up to zebra in that picture book encyclopedia set of yours.
Not yet, Sheriff. I'm halfway through Y.
Why? Well, take my word for it, son. Why can be the hard one sometimes. I bet by the time you get through, you'll have seen every creature on this planet.
I hope so. But Pa bought that set used and a couple of volumes are missing.
Is that a fact? Well, now listen, son. I guess you know why I'm here.
It's about the Red Ghost, isn't it?
Well, that and a couple other things. Darndest thing, that Red Ghost. He keeps showing up everywhere now. Last night, he even made a surprise appearance outside Betsy Langhorne's privy. Scared that old widow woman half to death. Now, okay, talk to me, son. You and the Petersons, and now Betsy Langhorne, are about the only ones who ever got a good, reliable look at this thing. And if I'm any judge of the rumors in this county, and I am, well, I bet you know what Betsy Langhorne and the Petersons are saying. They got the whole territory talking about this one.
Yes, Sheriff, I heard.
All right, well, never mind what the Petersons or Betsy Langhorne saw. Now, all I want to know is what you saw that night.
I told you everything I know, Sheriff. It could have been a man in a black sombrero riding that thing, but it weren't no elephant, and it weren't no zebra, and it sure ain't heck weren't no horse.
All right, go on.
Whatever it was something I never saw before in my life. You gotta believe me, Sheriff.
Now, I do believe you, son, and I truly do. The question is, will anyone else?
You knew my uncle, didn't you, Sheriff?
Well, that I did. Hank Culpepper was the most prideful man I ever knew. Prideful to a fault.
Then, is it true he could ride and break anything in this county with 4 legs if you gave him half the chance?
Well, yeah, no, I reckon it's true. Well, all but one, maybe. And that was the one that killed him. But not right out. Died of shame, I reckon, and well, he never came back.
You don't believe in big red ghosts, do you, Sheriff?
Sometimes I'm not exactly sure. I'll tell you what I do believe, and that's that Encyclopedia Britannica. So what do you say we go through the rest of those pictures and see what kind of red ghosts we can come up with before everyone else in this territory gets as spooked as Betsy Langhorne on her way to the privy?
But I already told you, Sheriff. I've been through almost the complete set, all except Z and half of Y, and the 2 volumes that are missing.
Well, now, I think if your parents don't object, you and I tomorrow morning should take a ride over to that new public library in Clifton, where I know for a fact they got a complete set. And then maybe on our way home, I'll buy you a nickel ice cream cone.
You think we can, Sheriff?
I'm the sheriff, ain't I? I'll put that ice cream down on my expenses. Yeah, nothing's too good for my star red ghost witness.
That night, 3 more unofficial sightings were made of the Red Ghost, and in 3 different counties, and one as far away as Lordsburg, New Mexico. And in the morning, while the rest of the territory whispered about ghosts, Sheriff Slattery and Bradley Cooper were eating nickel ice creams and going through the rest of the encyclopedia volumes at the Clifton Public Library.
That's it! That's a red ghost!
Are you sure, Bradley?
Positive, Sheriff. I wouldn't forget a thing like that.
Well, here, let me see that book. Well, why, of course, you're right. And And now it's finally beginning to make a little sense. You know what, Bradley? I wouldn't mind having someone as bright as you as my deputy.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Well, now that you know as much, if not more, than anyone else about our red ghost, how would you go about catching him?
I'm open to suggestions.
Oh, all right. Well, here's my plan. It may take several nights, but we're going to get on.
The sheriff explained his plan to Bradley, and then he drew up a map with a small X in the center, approximately halfway between all the reliable sightings of the red ghost. And then, the next night, they waited and waited. And the night after that. And then on the third night, just about the time when Bradley was beginning to lose patience in detective work.
That's it! That's it, the red ghost!
Well, now, only he don't look like no ghost to me, Bradley.
No, he doesn't. He looks more like that encyclopedia picture, don't he?
Yeah, he does it that. Now, you wait here while I go down and shut the gate on him while he's still eating.
Nice of him to walk right into that old stock corral. Must have been the water he smelled. That or all the fresh cut grass we bought him over at the ranch. That's what the book said they like best to eat. But what's that thing strapped to his back? It looks like a body. More like a skeleton, maybe? With a black sombrero tied to his head.
I don't believe it. I mean, I see it, but I still don't believe it. It's him, all right. After all these years. It looks like the desert's gone and mummified him real good. Why, I'd hardly recognize him if it weren't for that silver-banded Mexican sombrero.
Wait, you know that man, Sheriff?
Well, I did years ago, back when we were both about 10 years younger.
You mean?
That's right, son. That's your Uncle Hank Culpepper. The man who said he could ride anything in the territory with 4 legs. It looks like he met his match when he tied himself up to that camel. No wonder the sight of those two scared your Aunt Jolene to death.
You think my uncle tied himself to that camel?
Well, that's my theory, son. You see, your uncle was quite the showman. Not to mention he liked to drink. Now, my guess is that old camel rode your uncle straight into the desert where he come from, and when his end was near, your uncle tied himself to that camel so as not to fall off.
But where did it come from, Sheriff? The encyclopedia said camels only live in Africa and parts of Asia.
Well, that's right, they do. But I know for a fact that about 30 years ago, Lieutenant Edward Beale, at the orders of the U.S. Army, brought out a bunch of camels from Syria as draft animals to search out a wagon route up north of here. Now, during the war between the states, most were auctioned off to circuses and zoos, but a few escaped. And I guess this one has been living out in the desert ever since.
He sure is an ungainly looking one, ain't he?
Well, now, I guess you would too if you lived in the desert all your life. Now, don't move a muscle. I'll be right back.
So the sheriff snuck down and closed the stock gate while that old dromedary was still eating. The next day, the whole town of Clifton rode out to have a first-hand look at the red ghost, and after 10 years, to give Hank Culpepper a proper Christian burial.
You mean to tell me, Sheriff, that's him? That's what we've all been so afraid of all these weeks?
Hell, that's the red ghost, all right. Ain't no other in the whole territory of Arizona.
He sure don't look like anything I've ever seen before, does it? Sort of like a horse if it were drawn up by a congressional committee.
Yep. On first look, he does take getting used to. And no wonder everyone in the county thought they'd seen a ghost.
But how'd you figure it out?
Just your standard 19th century police work. Well, that is to say, young Bradley Cooper here figured out most of the mystery with the help of a complete set of the Encyclopedia Britannica.
It was the C volume that was missing from our set, Mama. Otherwise, I'd figured it out a lot quicker.
You did real good, son. Your father and I are proud of you. And if she were here today, Aunt Jolene would be proud of you, too.
Not to mention your Uncle Hank. That was real good 19th century detective work. Why, you may grow up to become sheriff one day.
We could certainly use a good sheriff in this county. What with Cochise and his Apaches still on the prowl.
Hey, that's enough out of you, Red Ghost.
Well, that's the true story behind the legend of the Red Ghost, which happened exactly this way back in 1883. Well, with one or two minor embellishments. By the way, it might interest you to know that the great Apache warrior Cochise settled down and became a law-abiding citizen. Young Bradley grew up to become one of the first U.S. congressmen from the new state of Arizona. And the Red Ghost lived out his remaining years in the Cooper Ranch. And Sheriff Slattery returned to California shortly after narrowly losing his re-election. The role of Bradley Cooper was portrayed by young Matthew Moser. Bradley's sister Rebecca was played by Miss Gwyneth Norwalk. Their mother, Carla Jean Cooper, was played by Jan Gentner. Jane Toth was Aunt Jolene. Bradley's father was Victor McGee. Ken Ferguson played Sheriff Slattery. And Tom Parrish was Bill Bledsoe. Yours truly was the first witness, and Bonnie Lee was the second witness. And Martha and Early were portrayed by Suzanne and Tom Parrish. Three leading independent research organizations made a survey of doctors' cigarette preferences. 113,557 doctors were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" And the brand named most was Camel. In this year of 1945, the makers of Camel cigarettes send free Camels to servicemen's hospitals from coast to coast. And this week, Camels go to Veterans Hospital in Sun Mountain, New York, U.S. Air Station Hospital at Kessler Field in Biloxi, Mississippi, U.S. Naval Hospital in Corona, California, and the Veterans Hospital in Knoxville, Iowa. To receive a full copy of the doctor's survey, just send a penny postcard to R.J. Reynolds Company, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That's R.J. Reynolds Company, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So remember, according to a nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camel than any other cigarette.
For soft water shampooing, use Tony Cream shampoo.
Even in the hardest water,
Tony Cream shampoo.
Yes, even in hardest water, Tony Cream shampoo gives soft water shampooing that rinses away dandruff instantly, leaves hair so soft, so smooth, so shining clean. Today, bring out the sparkling beauty of your hair with soft water shampooing. Get the handy tube or jar of Tony Cream shampoo. It's new.
For soft water shampooing, use Tony Cream shampoo.
even in the hardest water,
Tony Cream shampoo.
And now a 1946 classic written by Bobby Troup and sung by our favorite jazz singer, Bonnie Lee.
If you ever plan to motor west, travel my way, take the highway, that's the best. Get your kicks on Route 66. It winds from Chicago to LA. More than 2,000 miles all the way. Get your kicks on Route 66. It goes through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City looks mighty pretty. You'll see Amarillo and Gallup, New Mexico. Flagstaff, Arizona, don't forget Winona, Kingman, Boston, San Bernardino. Now won't you get hip to this timely tip? When you make that California trip, get your kids on Route 66. If you ever plan to motor west, travel my way, take the highway, that's the best. Get your kicks on Route 66. It winds from Chicago